As you know, we have over 1,000 of you to seat, and we'd like to start the program on time. So if we could ask for your help finding a seat. The servers have also graciously agreed to help flag you when there's 1 or 2 seats. I always promise that we will deliver on lots of time to chat with each other soon, but please, please, please find a seat, find a server waving at you. It may be a case of making new friends and splitting up your group, but I promise you that'll be good too. Thanks so much, and we'll be back in 2 minutes to start the program. Good afternoon. We're going to get the program started, so I'd ask again if you could find a seat and quiet down a little bit. Again, the servers are ushering in, and I promise you this is going to be worth every second.
Fancy kind. It's time.
You stare at this thing and you look up and it's like,
How many times in your day do you
All right, hello Detroit. I'm going to look for where the NCAN members are. Where's Brandy? Where's Ryan? We're looking for the Detroit College Access Network, the Michigan College Access Network. All right, we see some waves. Thank you all for your attention so that we can keep on schedule with our program. We're going to kick things off. You'll see you have appetizers on your table, and lunch will follow after the plenary. Thank you, Team NCAN and NCAN family. Welcome to the lunch. We know this is exciting, and moving almost 1,100 people is quite the task, so thank you to the servers for helping direct any seats. This may be like the C boarding group in Southwest, where you make some new friends and you sit as a single. So welcome all. We're delighted to have you here. I hope you had a great morning of learning together and you're meeting some new friends here. I was asked to make one brief housekeeping announcement, and it is there will be more lunch after the speaker. We're not putting you all on the diet plan, but we didn't want you hangry until after the speaker, who will be so fabulous you will forget that you're even the slightest bit waiting for lunch. So I'm here to open the program and to share with you a preview of the Form Your Future campaign that we've talked about this morning. You'll see this is a very special preview. The campaign is actually launching next Friday, September 30th, which is FAFSA Eve, if you will. You can have an event for FAFSA Eve, too. Form Your Future is NCAN's national FAFSA completion campaign. And as I said, it will launch next Friday, September 30th, in advance of the October 1 open of the FAFSA. And this campaign is targeted to increase FAFSA completion, which is currently at a national average of 55% for high school seniors, a number we certainly can and should move together. And you can imagine your numbers in your high schools, particularly where you serve many of our first-gen students, are probably sadly lower. So the good news is, though, that filling out a FAFSA is the #1 indicator that a student will enroll, and that students who fill out the FAFSA and complete the FAFSA have an 85% chance of receiving financial aid to go to college. So we have really doubled down on this issue. We worked together over the past year with many of you who served on our steering committee to develop this new brand and campaign. I hope you get the play on words, Form Your Future, the FAFSA form, and how it ensures your future. We'll tell you more about that often, I promise. Along with this website that you're seeing the landing page of, which is live at formyourfuture.org, there will be 3 toolkits. One, FAFSA guide, a line-by-line how to fill out the FAFSA, including video for those of you with newer advisors, or those who need to brush up on what may have changed and how this is different this year as it is. As well as a social media toolkit with packaged tweets already written for you to do outreach to your students and families. And then finally, an event toolkit for hosting FAFSA completion events, and that ties in well to the social media as well. Along with that, there's a direct-to-student component of this campaign that will include social media using influencers who probably, unless you're super cool in this room, none of you know. And that's a good sign, because that means they resonate with our students, not all of the over 40s and seniors invading Facebook and now coming onto Twitter so that they move somewhere else. So watch for all of those things. At this point, I'd like to thank USA Funds for their early work in helping us to form this brand. And again, thanks to the Kresge Foundation for helping us to launch this campaign in year 1. Because you are special, Sosie, I told you there would be many good benefits for sitting down. We're going to share a sneak peek of one of the celebrity videos that will launch with the campaign next Friday.
Chance of me changing my position on healthy eating, 0%. But the chance of you getting some kind of financial aid for college, 85%. Your chances are that good. Almost everyone can get money for school. All it takes is about 20 minutes. Form your future by applying today at fafsa.gov.
So our thanks to our FAFSA champion-in-chief. That is but one of the many resources that will be available to you on the website so that you can use this video in your social media, at your events, really to push all of our students towards FAFSA.gov and FAFSA completion. So thank you, and please watch for more from us next Friday on the 30th. At this point, it's my pleasure to move on with the program and to welcome board member Paul Luna of the Helios Education Foundation to continue, and to welcome our plenary speaker.
Thank you, Kim. I think, as all of you know, Kim is a fabulous leader of NCAN, and so I want to take a moment and acknowledge Kim, her leadership, and all of the team that has done so much, especially in the last number of years, to get this momentum going. So good afternoon. As Kim indicated, my name is Paul Luna. I'm the president and CEO of Helios Education Foundation and a proud member of the NCAN Board of Directors. And I also want to extend, on behalf of the board and NCAN overall, our thanks and appreciation to all of you for welcoming us so warmly to the Detroit community, in particular to the Kresge Foundation and all of the Detroit, Michigan-based partners. This is just such an exciting conference that Caroline promised we would have a year ago in Orlando and has really come to fruition. So thank you to Kresge, to all of the partners, and quite frankly to all of you for being here to really engage and celebrate, which is important work that I know we're all a part of. So let's give them a round of applause. So you may recall a number of speakers earlier this morning in their welcome had Twitter moments. And so I just want to be right up front and clear about that as I give some opening remarks and introduce our keynote speaker. There will be no Twitter moments in my speech, all right? Just so everybody relax. In fact, maybe that is the Twitter moment. Paul Luna speaking, no Twitter moments, so don't worry about it. But I assure you our keynote speaker will have numerous moments that you will want to tweet to all of your friends and anyone you know. And that's what's really exciting about a conference like this, to get the type of individuals like Jaime Casap to come speak to us. I do want to take a moment, if I can, to just, for those of you who don't know about Helios Education Foundation, just to take a moment and share a little bit about who we are. We're one of those organizations, like many others, who were formed through the conversion of a student loan entity. We were converted about 10 years ago or so in 2004. And we're driven, I'm sure, like many of you, by what we call fundamental beliefs. And we have 4 of them, 4 fundamental beliefs. We believe in education, investment, equity, and partnership. We believe that education changes lives and makes communities better. And in the work that we're doing, it's an important reminder that at the end of the day, we're trying to make our communities, whether on a neighborhood, a city, a town, a state, a nation, we're trying to make our communities better through this thing called education that's so important, and we know how transformational that is. We're committed and believe in investment, that investing in education is in fact an investment and not an expense. And I'm pretty sure that regardless of where you're from, you would probably agree that too many of our policymakers seem to think that education is in fact an expense that needs to be cut. In business, you cut and reduce your expenses any way you can. But that's not what education is. Education is the investment in our future, in our students, in all that we believe. And so we make sure that we tell everybody education is an investment, not an expense. We believe in equity. This idea and concept, to be very clear, that every student, regardless of where they're born, who their parents are, what zip code of community they live in, the color of their skin, their language at birth, every student, regardless of any of these factors, deserves access to a quality education. And finally, we believe in partnership. And by being here, I think you exhibit that spirit of partnership yourself. that only through partnerships can our work and the work of all of us actually have the type of impact we want to have. So through collaboration and partnership, we will accomplish our work. Like many folks, we are focused on eliminating the achievement and degree completion gap that exists for too many of our students, but in particular, low-income, first-generation, and minority students. And that this is an issue that really is what can be transformational in changing the trajectory of all of our communities, as I spoke to earlier. Earlier this morning, Tanya Allen spoke very eloquently about the issues of demographics and of race. And she called out the need for us to have real meaningful dialogue in this space if we're going to be successful in creating the type of college access network that I think all of us are committed to. And I want to just sort of focus on that for just 1 second and just put that into context and Helios' belief in that as well. So for example, in Arizona, for many, many years, our leaders have been talking about how the demographics is destiny. At some point in time, the state of Arizona, just like at some point in time, our country will be a majority-minority population. And we've talked about that for many, many years. And you still hear a bit of that in Arizona about, in the future, we have to acknowledge this majority-minority sort of state. But the reality is in education, when you look at the K-12 education pipeline of 1.2 million students coming through the Arizona education system, it's already a majority-minority pipeline. 4 years ago, the students became majority-minority, majority kids of color. Within the last couple of years, they've become majority Latino. And these populations continue to be the fastest growing populations in our state. So it's only going to continue and ultimately lead to that majority-minority state that everybody talks about in the future, but the reality is it's now. So this concept of we need to talk about the changing demographics, we need to talk openly and honestly about culture, about race, about how do we engage students that are coming from varying and different backgrounds is critically important. And that's why I think our next speaker is fabulous. Because if there's anybody that speaks openly and honestly, as I'm sure you're about to hear, it's Jaime Casap. So Jaime is someone that I've got to know in Phoenix over the last number of years, and I will tell you, and as you see on his bio, his official title is the Chief Education Evangelist at Google. And that is his official title. It's on his business card. But when I first met Jaime a number of years ago, his business card and title was Ghetto Superstar. So I pick whichever one you like. They're both pretty cool, and he has business cards to prove it. As I said before, I assure you there will be many Twitter moments as Jaime comes up to share his perspective on a number of things, but in particular, just his perspective. So to just get a sense of Jaime. So Jaime evangelizes the potential of the web, technology, and tools from Google and others, but tools that foster inquiry-driven, project-based learning. He speaks at events around the world on subjects of technology, innovation, and the power of education to transform lives. Jaime is a first-generation American, a first-generation college-goer, and he knows firsthand the power of education to disrupt poverty and change the destiny of a family in one generation. I'm hopeful that Jaime will share some of his personal story with all of you today. And to just tee it up, just so you know, Jaime grew up in Hell's Kitchen, New York. He ultimately earned his degree at State University of New York, Brockport, and at Arizona State University, and now resides in Phoenix, where we share many common collaborative, disruptive type of activities that we hope will change education in Arizona, across the country, and across the world. In addition to his role at Google, Jaime serves on numerous boards of directors, as you can imagine. He serves as an advisor to dozens of organizations focused on education, technology, and equity. He's an adjunct professor at Arizona State University. And most importantly, and I'm going to leave you with this, so be nice to him, we are still actively recruiting Jaime to join the NCAN board of directors. So we're still working on that. So without further ado, please welcome Jaime Casap.
So lesson number one is never let anyone who knows you introduce you. That's the first thing that I want to highlight here. So I want to kind of put a couple of slides up to talk a little bit about what's going on. First, let's start with some communication slides. You guys have been talking about Twitter. I've seen a lot of great activity on Twitter about the conference. It's great to follow along. It's a great way to keep conversations going. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I share a lot of research, a lot of information, a lot of cool things. A little bit about me. I am the Chief Education Evangelist at Google. I've been at Google for 10 years. I just celebrated my 10th year at Google. I've never done anything for 10 years, so this is kind of exciting. I'm part of the team that launched Google Apps for Education into the university space, launched Google Apps into K-12, launched Chromebooks into education. So my job is to work across the various teams at Google that are doing things in education. So I am more than thrilled and excited to be here. I want to talk about and start with the importance of education. And why are we here? Why do we care about education so much? And as Paul said, because we recognize that education is what disrupts poverty. Education is the silver bullet. Education, no matter where you go in the world, education is the topic that people have around what we need to focus on to change the destinies of families and communities all over the world. For me, it's a personal mission. As Paul mentioned, I am a first-generation American. My mother came to New York, escaping poverty and oppression from Argentina, and I was born in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Now, not the Hell's Kitchen that some of you might know and live in and go hang out in. The old school Hell's Kitchen from the 70s and 80s, the neighborhood you did not go into when you visited New York, that Hell's Kitchen. And I was raised on food stamps, welfare, social services, and I wanted out of that community. I didn't want that to be my destiny. And so I focused on my education. I put on what I call my reality distortion glasses, and I focused on my education, and I graduated from high school, and I went to college, and I graduated from graduate school, and I went to graduate school at ASU. That's how I ended up in Phoenix. And here I am standing in front of you. And these are milestone moments that we have in our lives and in our careers about what you've been able to accomplish. I had another one of those moments last summer when the First Lady of the United States asked me to come to the White House to speak to 150 students about the importance of education and the importance of college. I said, let me check my calendar. You just show up, right? But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know where this event was happening. I didn't know what was the situation, what to prepare for. So I went and I got escorted into the East Wing of the White House. And for those of you who might not have had a chance to visit the East Wing of the White House, it's this surreal moment of reality that happens to you when you walk into the East Wing of the White House, and all of a sudden you feel like you're in the 1800s, and you're walking through the hallways, and you notice the portraits of the presidents of the United States, the Kennedy portrait, you know, the famous one when he's looking down, the Reagan one, the Clinton one, and you're the guy who's guiding you around, you're like, hey, look, it's the Kennedy portrait. Like he had never seen it before, rolling in his eyeballs, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who has this experience. And I'm being escorted through the red room and the blue room and the green room. And then I realized that this is actually happening in the East Room of the White House. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going in there. I'm not doing this. But I prepared to go in there. And they escorted me into the green room. Not like the green room where they put your makeup on, like the actual green room of the White House. And I'm standing in the green room, and there's this doorway where you walk through to go into the East Room. And I'm standing there waiting. The event started. I was the first speaker. I was the only individual speaker. I also ran a student panel. And the First Lady sat on a panel, but I was the only one who was going to be the only speaker, the individual speaker. So I'm standing there waiting to walk into the East Room. And I'm looking out the window through the bulletproof glass, and I noticed the Washington Monument. And I look down at the hardwood floor, and it's a little bit worn in. And you think about everyone who's walked through that doorway into the East Wing, into the East Room of the White House, all the presidents that have walked in there, all the important people. A couple weeks ago, I was watching the Prime Minister of Singapore and the President walk in through that same room and through the same door. And I'm like, I know that door. And I'm standing there thinking, like, this street kid from New York is standing there waiting to be introduced into the East room of the White House. And so they open the doors, I walk in, everybody's in their Sunday best, all the lights are bright, the cameras in the back of the room, the First Lady, all the dignitaries are sitting there, and I walk up to the front, and I hadn't had a chance to prep the room, and this is what it looks like. Doesn't this look like one of those pictures you get at the fair? Where they green screen you in on some kind of image? It looks Photoshopped to me. Luckily, I have it from different angles, or I wouldn't be able to prove that that was actually me. So I'm standing up there, and I look out, and they had the back of the door, the back of the room was open, and the doors leading out from the room, and I noticed, and I had walked through that space a couple of times that morning, and I noticed the red carpet, where the president comes out and says, "We killed bin Laden," and then disappears. And I notice the lights, and I look at the cameras and the gold curtains and the George Washington portrait, and I'm like, I'm inside the television set. I'm inside the TV. And yet, I look down at that microphone, and I think about how powerful that microphone is, and what you can say in that microphone matters, and maybe changes your life, or I think it's one of the reasons I'm standing here is because I had a chance to speak into that microphone. And I look down at that microphone, and yet that hoodlum New Yorker in me just wants to scream "Baba Booey" right into that microphone. And I got invited back this year because I didn't do that. And that's the power that education has, right? That you can take, that's the American dream, that's the American ethos, that you work hard, you get your education, you can accomplish anything. You can speak in the East Room of the White House. That's what we're all working towards. That's what we're hoping our students can do as well. Now, here's the thing. The power that we have in education doesn't just go to the students that we're facing in our classrooms and in our schools and in our programs. The impact that we have on students goes on for generations and generations and generations, because you could be working in this field for 30 years and you're going to have an impact on kids that you will never meet in your entire life. Because now I have my kids. And this is them. Yeah, I have a 24-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Yeah, some of you are realizing I can't handle more than one kid at a time. When they're all together, it drives me crazy. But my 24-year-old graduated from ASU last year and had never talked about going to college. She never talked about going to college. She just assumed she was going to college because I went to college, because her mother went to college, because people in her life went to college. She assumes she's going to graduate school because I went to graduate school and her mother went to graduate school. And there's no way she could ever live in a world where I have an advanced degree and she doesn't. Like, she's way too competitive to ever live in that world. She assumes I'm going to pay for it, but that's okay. That's a good problem to have, right? How they see the world, their perspective, what they're doing is fundamentally different than it was for me in one generation. And they don't know that it was my 6th grade teacher or my 9th grade teacher that helped them do that. That's the real power that we have with education. And so if that's true, then we should probably take education very seriously and recognize that we don't live in this world anymore. We don't live in a world that's manufacturing-based, live in a world that's factory-based. We live in a completely different world. Jobs like this don't exist anymore. We live in a world that is technology-based. We live in a globally connected, network-based, knowledge-based world, and we have to help kids prepare for that future, because we recognize that we don't live in that world anymore. So, what is the future? We often talk about the future. I often hear in the education circles, we need to prepare kids for the future. We need to prepare kids with 21st century skills, right? We talk about 21st century skills a lot. We're in the 21st century. There are kids who are in school today who will be in the 22nd century. So it's not about preparing kids for the 21st century and some future that doesn't exist, because a lot of the future that we're facing has computer science in it and technology in it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that there will be 1 million computer science jobs available in the next 8 to 10 years. And this is in every industry, in every state, across the board. Everything that we do has computer science or technology as part of it. We bought a refrigerator a couple months ago, and that refrigerator had a stronger and a bigger computer chip than my first laptop.